You can learn anything. You can learn anything. Today I'm going to present to you my general theory of learning that you can use to learn anything. First of all learning is physical. All learning is physical. Learning anything, whether it's dancing, learning a new language, math, any subject in school, or riding a bicycle, they all involve physical changes to the brain as well as to the body. But ultimately, learning is about changes to the brain. So when we learn new things, we're actually changing the brain. And the brain is like a computer. And for example, like Microsoft or Microsoft Windows or the Apple Macintosh, it has an operating system. And so there's general rules on how to program the computer and how to program the brain. So what that means, and this is my theory of learning, is that learning any subject will have some common themes and common methods and techniques that we can use. What I'm doing is I'm combining the new science in brains and new neuroscience or new brain science, as well as ancient techniques that have proven to work for thousands of years, primarily in Asia, Japan, China, Korea. So it's a combination of old and new. So if you've mastered anything in the past, which you have, you've mastered dance, you've mastered language, you learned how to ride a bicycle. Okay, you learned at least 2 new languages. You know a total of 3 languages: Russian, Japanese, English. If you've learned how to dance, and if you learned a new language, then you can use your experiences there to learn new things. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight those things that you did and you didn't know that you did, but you can then use those methods to the new subjects that you're going to be approaching this year. So all learning is physical, and they all involve brain changes. And for this, we want to use the brain. The model we're going to use here is that the brain is a computer. So the question is, how do you program the computer? There's a specific way that you have to program it. Okay. So, and also too, is always think back to your experience learning dance and learning new languages. In dance, you had a teacher or when you are teaching dance, you start with small parts of the dance, certain subparts, and then you start with the steps, and then you repeat them. Steps and reps, that's what I call it. So you break them down into smaller parts. You can call them modules or lessons, and then you have your students. You teach them the steps, you show it to them, you have them repeat it, and you have them keep practicing. And eventually it becomes what's called muscle memory or motor memory. It becomes part of that person's brain and body. Okay. The same thing happens with the piano, violin. Piano is a good example too. Now with language, similarly, but the changes there are inside the brain, but also in your mouth, how you move your mouth to say the words, the tongue, the vocal cords. Those are actually very fine motor movements. I mean, it's only humans can speak, but actually, birds can make sounds too. But those are actually very complex motor movements. Okay, and so learning how to walk is considered to be one of the hardest things for a human to do. In fact, it takes years for a baby to learn how to walk. So if you learn how to walk, if you learn how to dance, if you know how to speak a language, you've actually learned the hardest things some of the hardest things to learn. So learning new subjects, in the beginning may seem overwhelming. They're actually not. The key is to break everything down into smaller parts, do steps and reps, and as you become more familiar and more comfortable, you keep adding on to it. Which may sound familiar to you. It's the same thing as when somebody's learning martial arts, Aikido, same thing over and over. Okay, so where a teacher can help you is they've already done it before. So what the teacher can do is the teacher can just say, hey, you need to start with this particular lesson. So the teacher will have the big picture view. Okay, you as a student, is the student's job is to do the lessons, to practice, to do the steps and the repetitions, the steps and repetitions. I call them steps and reps. Reps means repetition. So always, whenever you're learning new material, think about how you learn how to dance, and think about how you learn new languages. Okay, and this is very, very important because people will frequently become frustrated when they come across new material, and this happens to me every time I come across new material. Even now, after I've learned all this material that I have in my life and in this past year. Okay, do not worry about understanding. Do not worry about understanding. Now, this goes against a lot of the educational theories in America, where they emphasize understanding. Okay, I do not agree with this because it leads to frustration. Understanding is a final step. It's for example, it's the final choreography, or it's the final dancing of a song. When you learn how to ride a bicycle, you didn't have to understand how to ride a bicycle. Also, too, is even the things where you think you need to understand, like physics or philosophy, anything. Ultimately, they require the same changes that you would need to do in dance and language. So do not worry about understanding. Don't worry about understanding. You want to find a good book, find educational materials, a good teacher who is a guide, and you do the lessons. Understanding will come later. And I got to tell you, sometimes you don't need to understand. I've done well on tests, and I don't understand what I'm doing, okay? But so anyway, the point is this. If your goal is understanding, if you try to force that in the beginning, you're going to be frustrated. For me now, when I come across new material, completely new material, I have to read the material a minimum of 2 times even before I have a clue. That used to frustrate me. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? But I've done this so many times, and I've kept track how many repetitions do I need before I start to understand. If it's entirely new material, let's say it's a new subject area, like a new area of law, okay? Or it's a new book and it's new material. Usually I don't start to get it until at least the second repetition. It usually takes me a third time. Okay, the second repetition I start to kind of understand. Third repetition of the same material, I start to understand. Okay, so don't worry about understanding. Just focus on steps and reps. Focus on completing the repetition. Okay. And I've had situations, again, understanding is great, but you don't need to understand. You have to be careful too. Sometimes you think you understand, but you don't actually know the material. So it's not reliable. What needs to do is you need to focus on the steps and reps, steps and repetitions, and you need to focus on actually doing objective testing to see if you can, you've learned what you want to learn. And one of the procedures I want to do also too is going back to the way you teach dance and how you learn dance. You learn by seeing, watching someone else do it, also using your eyes, learn by hearing, multiple modalities, okay, and you learn by doing, okay, actually doing it. So, a lot of teachers will complain about, oh, now with Zoom, you can't have kids in the lecture room. Now, people can learn from lectures, but the format of having somebody sit for 3 hours is not the best format. It's proven to not be that effective. Okay, so I disagree with that, and I hope in the future they do like less lectures. Okay, but also depends upon the teacher. If a teacher is a very good lecturer, then yes, the lecture can be helpful. But if the teacher is not, if they have not produced the material in an organized, in a clear fashion, then they're not. It's a waste of time. So anyway. Now, now the final section of this part, because as my thoughts come up in the future, I may do more videos on the general theory of learning, is this. As we approach, as we start the preparation phase for the classes in April, I want you to primarily focus on, think of what you're doing as you're learning a new language, okay? And so, and also it's an opportunity for you to improve your English language skills too. And in order to, if you think about language, language is like a house, and the words are the bricks. The more words you know, the more language, more mastery of the language you're going to have. Okay. So at first, at least an understanding, and then eventually then using it in order to be able to write and to be able to speak. Okay, so think about your foreign language experiences. And so that is why it's very important for you to learn the words. I have found that whenever, if it's new material, if I know the words, what each one of the words means, all of a sudden I understand what the page means or the chapter means. So this is very important. And this is why on the right side of the screen, I have the website for Merriam-Webster, which is the Standard English Dictionary. Okay, so whenever you come across a word that you do not understand, or even a word that you just want to check the meaning of, you want to type it into the box. Go to Merriam-Webster.com, Merriam/Webster.com, or you can just Google Merriam-Webster. Or sometimes I'll just do MW dictionary, Merriam-Webster.com. Type in the word, and you want to know, whenever you come across a new word, this is what I recommend. I recommend that you know how to do the spelling. So let's say success is a new word. So here we go, success. I'm going to spell it, S-U-C-C-E-S-S. S-U-C-C-E-S-S. Maybe repeat it at least 2 times, maybe 3 times. S-U-C-C-E-S-S. So you need to know how to spell the word. Next, pronounce the word. And this is why I like Merriam-Webster, is because if you look here, next to the word, it has a little audio speaker icon. You hit that and listen.
Success, success, success.
The website pronounces the word for you. So you listen to it several times.
Success, success.
And you're going to say it, success.
Success.
Success. Success.
Success.
And then you can look at the definition. You don't have to memorize the definitions. Okay, you can just read it. Okay, just get an idea. Or you could actually just read it aloud. For example, here.
Success.
Success. S-U-C-C-E-S-S. Success. Definition: degree or measure of succeeding, favorable or desired outcome, also the attainment of wealth, favor, or eminence, one that succeeds. All right, so, and also whenever you come across the things that you really want to make sure that you are taking care of, or you want to go over the words, read it out loud. All right. So I've kind of looked at the material of the new books. There's going to be words that you are not familiar with. There's going to be a lot of words. It's actually, even though it has an entry-level class, it may it's actually has a lot of psychology in it. I would consider it to be actually a mid-level college class. I would classify it not as a first-level class, more as a middle-level class. There may be harder classes out there, but it's reasonably challenging. But what my approach is, I'm going to use these general theories here, and I'm going to come up with some sort of an educational game plan for the 2 months before there. Now, the reason why we want to start before is it takes time for the brain. If you can give your brain more time, learn slowly, it's a more comfortable experience. It's less painful. You can learn in 24 hours or in 1 day in a cram session, but it's less comfortable, and sometimes it's less effective. So there's no need for that. We're talking about doing like a little bit a day, maybe 5 to 10 minutes a day, maybe 5 minutes a day, or just, on the weekends, maybe 30 minutes. And if you do that, it will prepare you for the course. And then when you do the course, look, you don't just remain calm and carry out the steps. We'll keep track of the drop dates. There's different drop dates. They're like, for example, in the first week or so, if you don't think the class is going to work out, you can drop and get a refund. Then there's a next step where you can drop and get nothing. Your transcript says nothing, and then you can also drop, and then you get a W or withdrawal. But the withdrawal doesn't affect your GPA. In fact, I have several withdrawals on my transcripts. It has no impact on anything. Okay. So anyway, that is my introductory discussion on my general theory of learning.